The 50501 movement is one of the most significant political movements in the U.S. today, opposing the policies of President Donald Trump, particularly those related to social welfare, immigration, and the rights of minority communities. On April 19, 2025, the movement is set to organize over 400 events across the country, ranging from protests to community activities, all aimed at promoting change and protecting the rights of those affected by federal policies. The 50501 movement didn't emerge overnight. It's the result of years of frustration, growing inequality, and a deep sense of injustice that many Americans felt under the policies of the Trump administration. The movement was born from the collective outrage of individuals and grassroots organizations who felt that their voices weren't being heard and that their rights were being systematically stripped away by policies that disproportionately affected marginalized communities. At the heart of the movement is the realization that for too long, the voices of the underrepresented, the poor, the immigrant, and the marginalized had been ignored or silenced. As the Trump administration began rolling back critical protections for these communities, a sense of urgency emerged. These were not just political policies anymore, they were attacks on the very core of democracy and equality in America. The decision to call this movement 50501 was deliberate. The name reflects a unified vision: 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. The intention was clear: this wouldn't just be a movement confined to a single state or region, it would be a nationwide uprising, with people in every state joining together to demand justice, fairness, and accountability. Behind the movement were not just political activists, but everyday people, teachers, healthcare workers, immigrants, students, parents, who found their lives negatively impacted by the policies of the Trump administration. In their communities, they witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of policy changes: cuts to social welfare programs, attacks on healthcare access, discriminatory immigration laws, and an increasingly hostile environment for minority communities. The organizers of 50,501 understood that change wouldn't come without a fight. But they also knew that if they could channel the anger, the frustration, and the deep desire for change into a single, unified force, they could ignite a movement powerful enough to challenge the status quo. They began with small, intimate meetings, talking to their neighbors, organizing local events, and gathering like-minded people who shared their vision. These grassroots efforts were key to the early success of the movement. It wasn't about a few influential leaders at the top. This was a movement powered by ordinary people who recognized that their fight was connected to the struggles of others across the country. People from all walks of life, all political backgrounds, and all races united under one cause: the fight for justice. From the very beginning, 50,501's leaders emphasized inclusivity. This wasn't just a protest movement, it was a movement to empower communities, especially those who had historically been marginalized in political discourse. The movement's goals were simple but profound: to ensure that every American, regardless of their background, had access to basic rights like healthcare, education, and the ability to live without fear of discrimination. As the movement gained momentum, it quickly attracted the attention of larger organizations, civil rights groups, and labor unions. From the American Civil Liberties Union (ACLU) to Indivisible and the Women's March, key allies joined forces with 50501, amplifying its voice and expanding its reach. These organizations brought not only resources and experience but a shared commitment to defending the core values of democracy. The 50501 movement's message was clear: it was time for ordinary people to rise up and demand a seat at the table. As they launched nationwide protests, rallies, and advocacy campaigns, they made one thing unmistakably clear: they weren't just protesting against a president or a party, they were protesting against a system that had allowed inequality, injustice, and discrimination to flourish unchecked. While the 50501 movement was born from frustration and anger, it's been fueled by something more powerful: hope. Hope for a better future. Hope for a country that values equality, justice, and human rights. And as April 19, 2025 approaches, that hope is manifesting in a nationwide movement unlike anything seen in recent history. Over 400 events are now planned, spanning all 50 states. These won't just be protests, they're going to be full-fledged actions that blend direct confrontation with acts of solidarity. From marches and rallies in the heart of the nation's capital to small community cleanups in rural areas, every action is a statement. A statement that demands to be heard. Each protest represents more than just a single voice. It's a collective shout, a chorus of millions, united by a single cause. The movement has already seen thousands of participants, with even more expected to join in the coming weeks. From the streets of New York to the heart of Texas, people are coming together to demand change. But these protests are about more than just raising a fist in anger, they're about creating a lasting impact. At the core of 50,501's activities are community-driven initiatives. These protests are designed not only to express discontent but to forge connections, offer support, and build the future that many believe America is capable of achieving. The 50501 movement isn't just about what's wrong, it's also about what could be right. Throughout the protests, you'll find activists and participants gathering not just to speak out against a government they feel is unjust, but to create tangible solutions. Free healthcare clinics, workshops on voter registration, and community support groups are all a part of the initiative. It's a movement that's fighting for justice, but also providing it on the ground level. And while these protests might seem localized, their impact is far-reaching. The protests have been strategically planned to coincide with key dates and locations that symbolize the ongoing struggle for equality, both for the movement and the people it represents. From April 19, 2025, each event will bring people together to make their voices heard in the places where decisions are made, and where change needs to happen. As the 50501 movement gains momentum, the impact of these protests continues to grow. The movement has begun to draw the attention of local and national media outlets, amplifying its message. Major news networks are covering the protests, interviewing participants, and broadcasting the speeches of key figures within the movement. The media attention, in turn, has led to increased participation. The hashtag 50501 movement has trended across social media, with young activists and political figures leading conversations online. What started as a localized effort to oppose Trump's policies has turned into a full-fledged political movement, gaining traction and inspiring people from all walks of life. Every protest is an opportunity for people to come together and rally behind their shared ideals, justice, equality, and the belief that a more inclusive society is possible. As the movement moves forward, it will continue to call on people not just to protest, but to take action in their communities, advocate for their rights, and be the change they want to see. The 50501 movement wasn't just born out of frustration with President Trump's leadership, it was formed as a direct reaction to the specific policies his administration has enacted over the past few years. From healthcare cuts to restrictive immigration measures and assaults on the rights of marginalized communities, the Trump administration's policies have triggered a widespread sense of urgency among those who feel directly threatened by these changes. One of the most widely contested actions under Trump's administration has been the drastic cuts to social welfare programs. These cuts target vital services such as healthcare, education, and housing assistance, all of which disproportionately affect low-income communities and people of color. While the administration justified these cuts as part of its economic agenda, for many, they represented an abandonment of the most vulnerable. The administration's immigration policies have also been at the forefront of public outrage. The implementation of the Muslim ban, the controversial family separation policy at the U.S.-Mexico border, and the push for a physical wall have all served to deepen the divide between the government and the people it serves. These actions have not only separated families but have created an environment of fear, particularly among immigrant communities who already face systemic discrimination. But the most deeply felt policies have been those that directly target the rights of marginalized groups, especially the LGBTQ+ community. Trump's decisions to roll back protections for transgender individuals in the military, healthcare, and education have ignited widespread outrage. The legal challenges to these rollback efforts have become a central issue in the fight for LGBTQ+ rights under this administration. The 50501 movement has, in many ways, become a direct response to these policies. The movement's leaders and participants view these actions as an affront to the core principles of equality, justice, and the protection of fundamental rights. To them, the Trump administration is not simply enacting bad policy, it's actively dismantling the structures of democracy and human dignity. Many within the 50501 movement argue that the administration's actions have put the very fabric of American democracy at risk. From dismantling social safety nets to undermining civil rights protections, these policies are seen as not only harmful in the short term but as having the potential to reverse decades of progress in creating a more inclusive society. Furthermore, the economic policies promoted by President Trump, such as large corporate tax cuts, have led many to believe that the interests of the wealthy are prioritized over the needs of ordinary citizens. While large corporations have benefited from tax breaks, average Americans have been left to grapple with rising healthcare costs, job insecurity, and reduced public services. For the 50501 movement, the fight isn't just about opposition, it's about reclaiming the rights of every American to have a say in the policies that affect their lives. It's about ensuring that the most vulnerable among us are not left behind while the powerful continue to consolidate their wealth and influence. As the 50501 movement began to gain traction across the nation, it quickly became clear that the power of grassroots activism would not be enough to bring about the kind of systemic change that was needed. To truly challenge the policies of President Trump, the movement needed the support of established organizations, civil rights groups, labor unions, and grassroots activists from across the political spectrum. One of the most important alliances has been with the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, a longtime defender of civil rights and liberties in America. The ACLU has played a central role in challenging Trump's policies in the courts and has now partnered with the 50501 movement to mobilize people in every state. Through their support, the movement has gained greater legal and strategic depth, enabling it to challenge unconstitutional policies effectively. Another major partner in the 50501 movement is Indivisible, an organization known for its role in opposing Trump's legislative agenda and building political power from the ground up. Indivisible's nationwide network of local chapters has been a driving force behind organizing protests, providing resources for local groups, and helping to mobilize voters. Their expertise in grassroots organizing has proven invaluable to the movement's ability to connect with voters and impact local and national elections. The Women's March, one of the largest and most visible grassroots movements in U.S. history, has also been a key ally to the 50501 movement. Originally formed in protest of Trump's inauguration, the Women's March organization has worked tirelessly to amplify the voices of women, LGBTQ+ communities, and people of color. By collaborating with 50,501, they've expanded their reach, creating space for more people to join the movement for justice. Moreover, Planned Parenthood, which has been at the forefront of defending reproductive rights, has aligned itself with the 50501 movement to protect women's health services from Trump's attacks. From defunding Planned Parenthood to restricting women's access to reproductive health care, the movement has found common ground with Planned Parenthood's mission to safeguard access to health services for women, especially those in vulnerable communities. These alliances aren't just symbolic. They are an expression of shared values and a testament to the power of collective action. By joining forces, these organizations have brought together resources, expertise, and networks that have enabled the 50501 movement to expand its reach, grow its base, and challenge the Trump administration's policies on multiple fronts. One of the most remarkable aspects of the 50501 movement has been its inclusivity. It's not just a movement for one group or a single cause, it's a movement that has brought together communities of color, immigrants, LGBTQ+ individuals, working-class families, and others who feel that their rights and freedoms are being threatened by the Trump administration's policies. This is a movement by the people, for the people. Whether through coordinated marches, legislative advocacy, or direct action, the 50501 movement continues to grow its influence. By partnering with these organizations, the movement has become not just a protest but a political force that is shaping the future of U.S. politics and challenging the status quo. The stakes are higher than ever, and the movement is determined to continue fighting for justice, equality, and the protection of human rights. As the 50501 movement continues to grow, its influence has begun to transcend U.S. borders. What started as a grassroots effort to challenge the Trump administration's policies has become a rallying cry for social justice and equality on a global scale. Across the world, people are standing in solidarity, recognizing that the struggles of marginalized communities in the U.S. are also struggles for justice everywhere. From Mexico City to Berlin, the 50501 movement has inspired solidarity protests, with people in countries around the world showing their support for those fighting for a fairer society in the United States. In some cases, these protests have even led to the creation of sister movements in other countries, as people recognize that the challenges faced by Americans under the Trump administration are part of a broader, global fight for human rights and equality. These international movements are not just symbolic, they are tangible demonstrations of a shared struggle for democracy and human rights. The global outcry is particularly significant in countries where issues of immigration, civil rights, and equality are also deeply relevant. For example, in Mexico, many of the protesters are speaking out against the same U.S. immigration policies that have caused so much hardship for families and individuals on both sides of the border. Furthermore, the 50501 movement has caught the attention of human rights organizations and global political activists. They see it as a critical moment in the fight for democracy, not just in the U.S., but globally. Organizations like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and various UN agencies have recognized the movement's significance in challenging authoritarianism, inequality, and discrimination. The movement's ability to inspire change has been amplified by social media, with the hashtag #50501 movement going viral across platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. People around the world are sharing stories of their own struggles, connecting over the common cause of justice, and organizing international solidarity events. These connections have only strengthened the resolve of the movement's core leaders and participants, showing that their fight is not isolated to the U.S. but is part of a larger, global shift toward fairness and equity. As the 50501 movement continues to grow, the question remains, how will this global solidarity translate into lasting political and social change? While the movement has made an undeniable impact, it's clear that the struggle is far from over. The next steps will be crucial in determining whether this momentum can be channeled into tangible political victories, both in the U.S. and around the world. What's clear is that the 50501 movement has ignited a spark that is spreading across the globe, with people everywhere recognizing that the fight for justice is a universal one. The movement has not only reshaped American politics, but it is now a significant force in global discussions about democracy, human rights, and social equity. And this is just the beginning. With the 50501 movement spreading like wildfire across the globe and through the heart of American politics, it's becoming increasingly clear that the movement is not just a reaction, it's a political force in its own right. As protests continue to grow, the question now is, how will it impact political discourse and policymaking in the United States? What will it take to turn this energy into tangible legislative change? The 50501 movement's efforts have already begun to influence political dialogue in Washington. Politicians who may have once dismissed the movement as a fringe protest are now being forced to engage with its demands. As public pressure mounts, the administration and members of Congress are beginning to address the movement's key issues, including healthcare, immigration reform, and civil rights protections. The question that many are asking is whether the movement will be able to maintain its momentum and force lawmakers to enact real change. With elections on the horizon, 50501 has become a powerful grassroots force that cannot be ignored. As more voters become energized by the movement's calls for justice and equality, politicians are beginning to understand that ignoring this rising tide could come at a steep political price. However, there are also significant challenges ahead. The entrenched political system in Washington is notoriously resistant to change, especially when powerful corporate interests are involved. Some politicians may attempt to co-opt the language of the movement, promising reform without delivering substantial policy change. The movement's leaders understand that true change will require more than just words, it will require sustained pressure, strategic action, and the ability to mobilize voters at every level of government. As the 50501 movement pushes forward, its leaders are also focused on building a political strategy for the future. It's not just about protesting government policies, it's about creating a long-term, sustainable platform for progressive change. Organizers are working to ensure that the voices of marginalized communities are heard in local, state, and national elections, helping to elect politicians who truly represent the needs of the people. The 50501 movement's political impact will ultimately depend on its ability to turn protest energy into lasting electoral power. Whether it's through pushing for progressive legislation, holding lawmakers accountable, or getting more people involved in the political process, the movement has proven that it's not going away. And with every protest, every campaign, and every call for justice, it becomes harder for those in power to ignore. The 50501 movement has already reshaped American politics in ways that few could have predicted. From humble beginnings as a response to unjust policies, it has grown into a powerful force that is demanding change on a national scale. But the real question remains, will it be enough? Will the momentum of this movement lead to true political reform, or will it face the same roadblocks that have stifled progress in the past? As the future unfolds, the 50501 movement will continue to challenge the status quo, striving for a country where justice, equality, and human rights are not just ideals but realities for all. To stay involved and continue supporting the 50501 movement, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for updates. Join the fight for justice and human rights. Your voice matters. Together, we can create the change we want to see in the world.